Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from New York City at Grandma Terry's house, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Before we introduced our Walk on Wednesday, I just want to share. It's good to be here. Kaustubha, it's good to be back.
Welcome back, Raghu.
Me and Kaustubha are going to hang out and have lunch together, Mara. Going to have lunch, do a little wrestling, maybe. Some pillow fights.
Is Kaustubha making
Go for a stroll.
pizza?
Huh? Eat some
Pizza?
Kaustubha, are you going to make your famous pizza?
You know,
I need to go light, man.
Oh, okay.
The devotees were stuffing me up with stuff.
You're off the hook.
Those Gujaratis, man, they can cook. If you don't know, Gujarat is a state in India, and everybody worships Krishna. They all cook. That's where they get that movie Meet the Patels from.
Patel is a Gujarati
There's a
name.
good crew of people. And there's a massive
Good crew, that entire state.
a good crew of Gujaratis, yeah. They're incredibly pious people, and they just cooked for me this week. It was so nice. And I just did, yeah.
I see you. That you're when it comes to India, you got that Gujarati, maybe Punjabi. That's your
Gujarati,
that's your
Punjabi. These are
zone.
my people.
Yeah,
These are my people. You're more like a Bengali, and
Maybe.
You're more like a South Indian, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think I'm somewhere in between.
yeah. So I'm here with my mom, actually. 95 years old, this woman.
All right.
Grew up in New York during the Depression. Never,
Yeah, number what?
I got so many good stories about this lady. Oh, she's just good. She's grew up in the Depression, so she's frugal, and she's sharp, and she doesn't take anything for granted, and she's somehow doing great. Not an ache in her body. Never had a yoga membership. Never did any.
She's got a strong
Mom, did you ever do any
constitution.
sports? Tennis. She did tennis. Yeah, and bocce ball. That's about it. She has no aches and pains.
Good.
I've got great, and she's cheap like anything. Cheapest lady you'll ever meet. She'll walk to Chinatown just to get a bargain on some spinach.
And she never goes.
Did I ever
to the
tell you
cops.
about this? Ever tell you about my scarring Christmas that happened once?
Oh, it sounds like we're going off on a major squirrel here.
This is give you some
We do have
backstory
a
about
guest
my mom.
on here today.
Check it out. This is what I'm saying. Now, we never had fancy Christmases. I had like wealthy neighbors. They all had like, the kids would get like an Atari, radio controlled cars, a mini bike. We would get like one game each. That's it. Like the game of life or checkers or something. You got one game and then like real little junky things besides that, but you got one game. And then one year I was 14, so I started growing up, and I went down there. There's just one little box for me under the tree. And I was like, this is interesting. What is this? I wake up early. I'm 14. I wake up early. I'm still like a little excited. I shake it. Sounds sandy. I open it up. You're not going to believe this when I tell you the story, but it's a true story.
It was sand.
No, it was a box of Jiffy corn muffin mix.
Okay.
And I was like, well, maybe there's money in it or something. No money. And that was it. That was all I got. It's as if she went to the kitchen took it off the shelf and wrapped it up for me. And so, a little shocked, I marched up to the bedroom and she's still sleeping. I said, "Hey, Mom."
What the hell is this?
I said, is this all I'm getting? And she looked at me and she goes, "What are you talking about? You love corn muffins."
I gotta go make some.
I got one more. Wait a second.
No.
Oh, come on. This is a good one.
All right.
I was dating a wealthy girl who came from a wealthy family. She came from a wealthy family, and she was coming to my house for Christmas. And I said, "Listen, we don't really do Christmas it's nothing big. We get something very small. Don't really expect anything. Really expect nothing." She's like, "Yeah, no problem. I don't care. We'll bring her something." I said, "No, I'm serious. Don't expect anything." She's like, "Okay, fine." So we got back there and we went under the tree, and sure enough, it said Kim. And she's like, "Oh my God, your mom maybe got me a present. This is so nice." I was like, "Trust me when I say, don't expect anything." And she opened it up, and it was a hand knitted winter hat and scarf. And she goes, "Oh my God, Mrs. Capo, did you knit this for me?" And she goes, "No, I got it at Salvation Army for a quarter." She was bragging.
See, this is why I said that you probably shouldn't tell this story. Let's bring it back, Robbie. You were gone for a few days. Let's
It's
bring
good
it back.
to be back, everybody.
Let's
I'm glad to be here
grounded
with my
here.
mom. And she's making me a cup of coffee right now.
Okay.
All right, so we have Seth Lieberman here. Seth is an empowered musician. He's an other. He's floating around there and an occasional Zoomer. He vacillates back and forth. He studied music, and then he fell in love with bhakti. Seth, welcome to the show, brother. Unmute yourself.
He's
sorry.
there we go.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Seth, how did you stumble into bhakti?
Oh, the bhakti story. Well, first, let me just say thank you to you, Raghunath and Mara and Kaustubha. I've been like a daily other for, I think, over a year now. So even though you don't hear me, I hear you guys every day.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that a weird phenomenon? Like,
and then Spotify has this thing where they tell you how many minutes you've listened to the show. So I had 9,780 minutes of Wisdom of the Sages in 2021. So
can anybody top that?
I'm sure. I missed a few days.
That's pretty good. 9,000 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a really integral part of my life lately, and
Thank you. Seth.
uplifted my bhakti. So thank you.
Thanks. We met at the Bhakti Stock Fest in Vermont, and then we just became bros. And so, when you're a musician, it's such a bhakti is such a musical culture. So, is that something that drew you in?
Well, I think that's something that, it's literally what drew me. And I guess the brief story is I, as a young child, showed an attraction to music and was very fortunate that I had parents and a education system that supported my studying of music. So I trained classically up through college, and then kind of had a little bit of an existential crisis. I didn't really fit into one of the study tracks, like be a performer, be an educator, or be a composer. I actually decided to study composition and music theory, but I didn't really have much direction. So it was a little difficult to find my way, and that's what led me to yoga, as probably it does for so many people that are lost or looking for something. So I discovered yoga in the city, New York City, when I moved there, and that led me to a yoga teacher training. I did my first yoga teacher training, and at the yoga retreat, they pulled out a harmonium, and they had us sit in a circle and do some kirtan, and that was my introduction to that. I'd never heard of it before, had no expectation, and it kind of blew me away. After getting burnt out from music studies, like very intensely, it started to pull me back into music in this, very non-technical way. You don't have to have a lot of technique to play the harmonium or to engage in kirtan. So yeah, it's literally through kirtan that I got deeper into bhakti, or I even began bhakti and then continued to stay connected to it through the years.
And now we have Seth, who's doing a harmonium course for us. A little harmonium. If you have a harmonium, it's going to be part of our Patreon members. When is that workshop, Mara or Seth?
This Sunday at noon.
Sunday at noon. Seth's going to do what do you call it? Intro to harmonium?
I'm actually calling it a harmonium meetup group. So I want it to be accessible for everybody. And even if you don't have a harmonium, you can come and ask some questions about how to get an instrument, how to get started. If you do have a harmonium, come and bring it, and we'll do a little lesson as well. But this is something I'd love to be able to connect more with this particular community and anyone interested in this instrument. So it's really open. I hope to do it on a regular basis, maybe monthly. So I hope you can make it. It's this Sunday at 12 p.m. And if you can't make it and do have questions about the harmonium or just want to learn a little bit more, you can reach out to me as well. SethYogamusic.com is my website. And you can email me there.
SethYogamusic.com.
Simple. SethYogamusic.com.
This is a great addition to our Patreon party that's going on. I'm really happy you're doing this because, this is I feel like what keeps a community is the facets of the culture, music and eating and, ritual and, friendship and sharing and study. So thank you so much for offering that.
And I will say a couple things about that. First of all, generally, I find the harmonium is a really accessible instrument to play, as opposed to maybe picking up a guitar, or I started on clarinet and saxophone before I moved on to piano. And that's very not easy to start and get an enjoyable sound out of.
I played violin from 3rd grade to my first year of university. It took me that long just to stink at it. Like the violin is one of those squeaky noise. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, and you play the harmonium in a second, you get like a nice sound. People are kind of blown away, people that have no music background. It is a reduction of a church organ. It has a really, the other reason I feel very connected to it is because it kind of bridges my Western and Eastern kind of sensibilities and traditions. It's a European instrument originally that is a reduction of a church organ that I think is developed by the French into the more portable version. The British brought it to India. And then, the Indians adopted it for their devotional music. So it has devotion in both realms. And now it's kind of coming back to the West. And Western music, that so many of us are comfortable with it. Kastuba was mentioning in his interview with Kaylee about feeling like growing up in Western music and feeling like that's a comfort or something along those lines. That's a tradition that I grew up in too. And what I love is that I get to keep my classical music training and my interest in Western music and apply it to bhakti, and I don't have to compromise that. I don't actually teach Indian classical music. I don't kind of pretend I do. I get to retain my love for the Western art form and use it in this way. So the harmonium's great if you did grow up with Western music or even Indian classical music. It can be used for both. And I just love it, and I encourage anyone who's interested in even just exploring a study of music to check out this instrument, because it, like I said, right away you play and it's, you get a great sound. So, yeah.
And you don't have to do it to lead a kirtan, to be a great kirtan leader at a temple or at a yoga class. You can just do it for years. I just did it just for me and just for my own personal offering and pleasure. So thank you so much. Incredible offering for our Patreon community. And Seth, it's glad to have you out there. And I love really getting to know others. So thank you. And thank you for being part of our community. Seth Lieberman, Saturday, Sunday at noon. And I know you got a busy day. You can stay.
How will people access that though? That's Merit.
Sunday class.
Find the links.
Yeah, and it's was sent out on the WhatsApp this week for Patreon members. The info is all there.
Great.
Alrighty. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for your service.
Thank you. So that's part of our Patreon group. Patreon is how we're supported. If you're new to this, it is a community-supported podcast. Thanks for everybody who's already in there. We really, really appreciate it. You go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And you didn't know it, but you're supposed to be upping your donation every month. Did you guys know that? Did anybody share that with you? That's part of the thing.
We don't. Yeah. We don't even joke like that, Raghunath. Okay.
Hey, I feel like I missed everything. You guys went on without me. It's sort of like I fell out of the car and the car kept on going. It's like, it's like, did your parents ever like leave you at at a rest stop and not realize it? Ever do that one? That's where I feel like you guys gone on. Parmananda came, the Sheshika came, you interviewed Kaylee. Everything happened. And I wasn't here.
Kaylee was a long time ago.
Wasn't?
No, we had Shama Sundar in between. You were there.
Yeah, Shama Sundar was great. And I got a chance to read his book. Almost half the book.
Okay.
I sat on that plane and just read. It was great.
Nice.
Yeah. Very inspired. And I met Kaylee. I hung out with Kaylee. He played Mridanga in the Kirtan I did. Incredible scene. There's a couple of Krishna restaurants in London. One's called Om Nam. Mm-hmm. Om Nam is incredible. And they have a whole Kirtan space upstairs. It's right in the heart of London. And then there, of course, is the Govindas on Soho Street. Yeah. Beautiful. I had no time to eat at either one of them, but that being said, the Gujaratis took care of me.
Good. I just wanted to thank everyone. We kind of had a little Bhagavad Gita drive over the past couple of days.
How did we do?
I don't have any numbers yet, but I spoke with Malini yesterday, who was the person you call into, and she said it was really going great. A lot of people were coming in and sponsoring whole cases of Bhagavad Gitas. So we'll get some numbers on that soon. There again, the goal was to try to distribute 2.2 million Bhagavad Gitas globally.
With just our listeners?
No, not just our listeners, but we had contributed some to it. So in any case, thank you to everyone who did sponsor some Gitas.
How was Parmananda yesterday? I didn't hear
great.
it.
We had a great time.
He's great. He's fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we have some Srimad-Bhagavatam. Shama Sundar, we talked a little bit after the show. He said, make sure everybody gets that web address for his book, which is chasingrhinos.com. Is that correct, Mara?
That's correct. Yep.
That's correct. chasingrhinos.com. And to get his new book on chasing rhinos with the Swami. Really good. It's really emotional too. It's his story. He was the secretary for Prabhupada, and then at one point at the meeting, the movement started getting bigger and bigger, and they just sort of said, you can't do it anymore. You can't be. We're going to step in, and they replaced him, and his heart was broken, and Prabhupada's heart was broken. Prabhupada's trying to accommodate for this whole new generation. Oh man! And then there was Peter Sellers, and the devotees would go to Peter Sellers' house. It was just an incredible story. It's one story after another. Oh, okay. Let's dive into this, Kaustubha. Excited to have lunch with you today.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So let's start with our secret mantras. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyanat Timarandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mara, where are we at, Mara?
What book are we reading?
What book? It's the
Reading
Srimad-Bhagavatam.
I think it's the Srimad-Bhagavatam.
One of the big ones.
Reading from Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text 14.
Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text 14. Kaustubha, does any part of this chapter have to deal, Chapter 14, Text 14? Does any part of this chapter have to do with spirit souls taking birth in other bodies? Because if it does, I've got another great reincarnation story.
No,
that way I'm not squirreling it. I'm tying it into the theme.
No, it has nothing to do with that whatsoever.
That was a great show, though, the reincarnation show. If you haven't heard the reincarnation show, it was good. But what it did was it drove me back to that website, carolbowman.com, get on that message board. There is some crazy stuff going on.
Well, invite her to come on the show and we'll talk about it.
You know what? I should find her and get her on the show.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. I would love that. I would love that. All these 9/11 ones, all these kids that are just like talking, pointing to the building. I worked there. I worked in New York City. I lived downtown. This happened to me, drawing pictures of it. They're 2 years old, man.
Okay.
There's no explanation for that. They didn't see that. Their parents aren't showing them old footage of 9/11. Another kid who got attacked by a shark. Whenever Kostuba looks towards his wife, I know I'm in trouble. He's like,
That's not my
he's
wife.
at
That's the
it.
clock. That's the clock. I'm
okay.
watching the time tick away before we actually get to the Bhagavatam.
All right, well, let's get to this Bhagavatam, Kostuba.
All right.
Doesn't matter if I have great, fascinating stories to tell here. All right, this is text 14. No,
Mhm.
we did 13. We did 14.
No, we did 13.
We did 13.
So, you know, yeah, we were hearing about different. You could say, I mean, I guess you could say grades of the practice of bhakti, right? We're talking
Grades
about
of perfection, right?
Well, we're talking about different, you know, bhakti that could be performed with blended in desires. And those desires might be tamasic, they might be rajasic, they might be sattvic. And then we heard about pure bhakti or uttama bhakti, which has no motivation, no material motivation whatsoever. It's all entirely based on love. And then we heard, to help illustrate that, Kapila said, you know, then he began to describe that these devotees, they don't, when you're operating on the platform of pure bhakti, when you're operating on the platform of pure love, you don't want anything, including even the things that like these most, like, I don't know, master yogis want, like the different,
Salokya, Sarsti, Samipya, Sarupya.
Yeah, the different forms of moksha or different forms of liberation. When you know, it's like if someone came to you and said, you know, I could grant you right now like freedom from all suffering and, you know, existence in a realm where suffering doesn't exist. You know, most people are like, yes, I'll take it right now.
Yeah.
But when you're operating on love, that love is so deep and so powerful. Even those things, you kind of achieve that automatically, but it's not your motive. It's not why you're into it.
Sure.
And so in text 13, we heard about how the pure devotees, they don't desire any kind of liberation, even though they're offered it. It just doesn't mean anything to them anymore.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe you don't know the answer to this, but you know that text 13 spoke about these different nuances of being a liberated soul. Sarupya, you take on a form similar to Lord Vishnu. Salokya, you go to live on the planet. Now, do you think to get that type of liberation, you need a guru who teaches how to do that? That's what's going on? Like gurus teach you how to get that, and we just happen to stumble upon a bhakti lineage?
Oh, you mean like are there schools of practice where
Schools
people are
that teach you
focusing on this?
how to end up on Vaikuntha, how to end up with the same form
Well,
of the
I
Lord.
mean, for certainly with Ekatva, there are, right? Like that's basically what Shankaracharya and all his followers, that's their goal.
to become one with the Lord,
Yeah, to try to
merge
to
into
try
the
to
existence.
merge. Yeah. So like that's there for sure. And I would assume, you know, whether I'm really just operating in the realm of
Speculative
speculation,
realm.
speculative realm here. Like, you know, are there gurus that are teaching you how to attain salokya, you know, how to go to a particular planet, or sarupya, how to, you know, have a four-arm form? You know, it's my thoughts would be, if that's your desire, then that's where you go, right? Like, in other words, if you've achieved the goal of yoga and you've completely detached yourself from all other material ideas, then but within your heart, you're like, I would like to live on the planet with Lord Vishnu and serve him, you know, in one of the forms in that place, then you go there. So, you know, you get what you cultivate. If you're reading the books that are describing that and meditating on that, then naturally you would go there. Just in the same way, we're like, for the Krishna bhaktas, you know, therefore we read Bhagavatam, we read 10th canto, you fill your mind with Krishna's Leela, and then you go to Krishna's Leela.
Or like the sages of Namaskarañña, not Namaskar, the sages of Dandakaranya, right?
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
seeing the Lord, but they're seeing, oh, what a beautiful man. Imagine a romantic relationship with, and then they get that birth in Krishna Leela.
Yeah, they saw
love
how
how-
Sita was serving him and the intimacy that they had. And when they could see that, they say, well, look at her, the position that she's in. what service she can do. Whereas, but in Ram's Leela, he only has one wife, so they all cultivated that desire to be able to serve as completely as she did. They took birth as gopis, and then Krishna has unlimited gopis.
I think it's important that it also be clarified that before, when I asked that question, Kostuba, everybody noticed that he said, well, I'm entering a speculative realm. Generally, we don't like to speak on things if we don't know them. How do we know them? We've heard them. They're descending. It's descending knowledge. Kostuba will always clarify, says, well, now I'm in a speculative realm, which means this is outside the parameters of what I know. And we say, I know this because it's been passed down. And so this is where this is the beautiful thing about being part of a tradition is there's not a room for sort of like Kostuba's cool take on, spirituality. We're presenters. We are all training ourselves to be presenters or teachers.
Representatives.
Representatives of yogic thought. And that way you can just also pass it on to everyone you know and say, hey, it indemnifies you actually. Hey, I'm teaching you this. You can like it. I'm not taking credit for it. It's not mine. And if you hate what I'm saying, it's not mine. This is just what they teach. I like that.
But what is interesting, what comes out of that is, like in the Gita, there's that verse, Yanti Deva Vrta Devan. You know that one?
Yeah, Yanti Deva Vrta. Which one is that again?
That who there generally is translated as whatever you worship, that's where you go.
Oh yeah.
Right? But just that idea that really our future is being determined by where we bring our mind. You could say where we bring our mind. You could also even maybe more accurately say where in your heart, which really means the mind, but that part of the mind where you hold those things that are dear to your most cherished desires and so on. So like, what is it? Have each of us clarified with intention, what is it that we really want? If what I think about in life will bring me to a certain destination in the afterlife, even in this life, what to speak of in the afterlife, then am I carefully choosing where I want to bring my mind, and have I carefully considered exactly what it is that I want to hold in that place in my heart? Have I made have I settled for something far less? Am I cherishing something within my mind and my heart that is something far less worthy than what could be there? And therefore, I'm going to have to settle for, a far less worthy destination. Is that what I contemplate on a daily basis? Is it something far less than my potential as an atma, a glowing spark of spiritual energy composed, for the purpose of divine love?
Yeah, it's a beautiful understanding that everybody is meditating.
Yeah.
Right? For example, Mara's cutting up vegetables right now. She's meditating on the food, but her intention behind that could be one of two things. How can I enjoy this? How can I offer this? Right? So everybody's got something they're thinking about on a regular basis. Sometimes it's our career, sometimes it's money, sometimes, or sometimes it's sex, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's religion. Sometimes people are obsessed. This is a good one. Obsessed with an enemy. You know what I mean? Or a political group that's an enemy, a person that's an enemy, someone in the family, a father that's an enemy, and that becomes their object of meditation. Yeah, they can be part of a religion, they can be part of a spirit, they can be part of a bhakti community, but their real meditation is on their enemy. So you get it. I don't know how that would manifest, but whatever it is, you become more bitter. All these things are practices. We're practicing meditating on, material success or physical success. And you get what you meditate on, and you learn some lessons along the way. And we just say, yeah, we take it there, and then we take it to that next level where you're meditating on a spiritual form, a spiritual reality, a mood of service. And then you get what you desire, actually.
Even what you're saying is so important. Look, it just totally relates to what taught in the Yoga Sutras. Like if you go to the Yoga Sutras, in the first chapter, in the 33rd sutra, it mentions how the yogi is meant, particularly the yogi, and it's interesting because it comes in the context of after it's described there that it describes a state of samadhi. And it describes how you can get there through this intense yogic discipline. But then it describes that you can also achieve that state of samadhi through Ishvara Pranadhan, through giving your life to God, which now we're in the realm that we're talking about, right? Like the realm of devotion. And then it begins to describe who Ishvara is, or like in a not in a very descriptive way, but it gives important details about Ishvara, who Ishvara is, what he's like. And then it describes the practice that you can do to connect with Ishvara. And it says that he's represented by the syllable Om, and that one should repeat that sound and meditate on it regularly. But then it begins to describe how the attitude that the yogi has towards others. In other words, in order to keep my mind fixed on that, in order to become deeply absorbed in that meditation so that I transform and achieve that yogic state, how I relate to others is going to become very important. And Raghunath, you were mentioning, like, sometimes I have an enemy, and that's my meditation, right? So in that text, it says, by cultivating an attitude of friendship towards those who are happy, by cultivating an attitude of compassion towards those who are in distress, by cultivating an attitude of joy towards those who are virtuous, and by cultivating an attitude of equanimity toward those who are non-virtuous, lucidity arises in the mind.
You know what? Let's go through what was the first person?
The first one is someone that's happy.
Someone that's happy. So you said you cultivate a mood of what?
Friendship.
Friendship. So it's very easy when someone's happy, and this is common, and I'm going to share a little. Sometimes you can hate somebody who's happy. You're so happy all the time. It can actually bring out some lower part of you. And what's the next one?
The next one is those that are in distress.
Those are in distress. Sometimes when there's people in distress, you can get in the mood of serves them right. It's about time.
Take joy in it. Hoping.
You know, take joy.
Hoping that, like they're in distress.
And sometimes it's in the guise of, oh, yeah, they're going through such a hard time. Oh,
let's talk about it more.
But there's like a deep relishing of it. Okay, what's the next one?
Then there's the virtuous.
The virtuous. And how are we supposed to act towards them?
Joy. You should feel joy towards the virtuous.
Virtuous. I can't think of that one. What's the next one?
What do you mean you can't think of it?
I have no good insight for that one.
Well, I mean, sometimes the people that are virtuous, we're not even, I mean, if we're on a strong, like, materialistic drive, then those that are virtuous may appear to us to be, it's like we're going the other direction. We're really not interested in their piety or whatever.
Big deal. Oh, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
It's all these are all levels of envy within the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last one is the non-virtuous. And
so someone's actually doing something inappropriate, and instead of being like jumping on the bandwagon, just see how inappropriate they are, you're equipoised, because you actually are feeling you're sensitive because people who are unvirtuous, they're actually suffering.
Yeah.
They are setting themselves up to suffer, and you're sort of equipoised, if not compassionate, towards those who are acting like jerks.
Yeah.
It's a pretty high standard.
Part of the equanimity means that I'm not associating closely with the non-virtuous. There's a little distance that I'm keeping because I don't want to those qualities to be rubbing off on me. So I don't mix with them too intimately. But at the same time, there's no sense of self-righteousness or judgment,
Sure.
And by judgment I mean condescension.
It's like these books are asking us to be not human. Like, it seems like the human tendency is just to go to all those ones that I mentioned, and it's asking to act on such a higher level. It's got nothing to do with how we were trained or what our defaults are. You got to act on such a higher level to not be petty.
Well,
that is the bar. no longer
culture-
being petty in this material world.
Well, a good culture or yoga culture is actually meant to instill this in one, that you would naturally feel this way, right? But we live in a very different culture. And, we think about, like, for instance, say you and I were raised in an Indian village, 200 years ago. Then
Wouldn't that
what
be
would
nice?
have been what would have been our entertainment as we're growing up?
Milking a cow. I don't know.
No, Ramayana,
Oh, the
Mahabharata.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Chasing the cabs.
Yeah, but so in other words, we would have had different ideas of what it means to be heroic, different ideas of what it means to be, what are attractive, naturally in our minds and our hearts, we would be emulating that kind of behavior. But what are we exposed to now? Just all kinds of crazy stuff,
Yeah.
So, but what it says is that when you, again, going back to Sutra 133 from the Yoga Sutras, it's saying by cultivating these attitudes, these 4 different attitudes, the yogi is careful not only how they behave, but how they think about these different categories of people. But it says by cultivating these attitudes, lucidity arises in the mind. Right? The mind becomes very clear. You're no longer becoming controlled by your mind.
Sure.
You're thinking clear. Now, I have some great I pulled up some commentaries on this because this is coming from Edwin Bryant's translation, so he's got the classic commentators on this.
Do tell.
Okay. So it begins with Vachaspati Mishra, one of the classic commentators on Yoga Sutras, who writes...
That's a person's name.
Vachaspati Mishra. Vachaspati. So Vachaspati Mishra elaborates on this. Being a well-wisher towards those who are happy, as well as those who are virtuous, by being a well-wisher towards those who are happy, as well as those who are virtuous, the contamination of envy is removed. By compassion towards those who are miserable, that is, by wishing to remove someone's misery as if it were one's own. I'll say that again. By compassion towards those who are miserable, that is, by wishing to remove someone's miseries as if they were one's own, the contamination of the desire to inflict harm on others is removed. By equanimity towards the impious, the contamination of intolerance is removed. Interesting, right?
So if you got somebody you hate out there in the political sphere,
even if they are
that.
impious,
there's a lot of hate out there right now.
Even if they are impious,
even if they are impious, it's affecting you.
Right, exactly.
Your hate towards them is killing you. Forget
about
about them. You're impious now.
The lucidity of your mind is becoming compromised by that intolerance.
It's incredible, huh? You know, Kostuba, everybody's got the same problems. Everybody's got the same problems. And no matter what your problems are, they always go back to these type of things, right? I'm too competitive. I'm really angry. I can't forgive someone who's harmed me. I want to consume the member of the opposite or the same sex, or and it's driving me to make poor choices. I think some money will actually fulfill some hole in my heart. It's I tell you, I did this class in England the other day. I gave class in Kirtan with Radhika Ranjan Prabhu, and it's the same thing. Everybody's asking the questions. It's the same questions. We're struggling with the same problems. It really boils down to kama, krodha, lobha, moga, lust, greed, anger, envy.
These are the 6 enemies of the self.
and I'm flipping it to make it seem like the whole world's broken, but I'm okay if people could just take my cue. But it's not. Those things are deep within me. I'm blaming Biden or Trump or Prince, prime minister.
What did he do to you?
Yeah,
what did Prince do to you?
I got issues, and unless I can sort of like clean my own apartment, so to speak, I'm trying to clean up the rest of the world. I can't even clean up my own apartment. Come on.
Well, this is talking about cleaning up right here. He goes on. Vachaspati Mishra says, by thus removing these traits of envy, desire to inflict harm, and intolerance, which are characteristics of rajas and tamas, the sattva natural to the mind can manifest. Okay, the mind naturally is in sattva guna, and that begins to manifest. In the ensuing state of lucidity, the inclination toward controlling the vrittis, controlling the movements of the mind, in other words, towards cultivating a focused state of mind by the practice of yoga, spontaneously arises. Yoga becomes easy. Meditation becomes easy, right?
Sure.
Don't think people, oh, I go to meditation class or I teach meditation or whatever. But
Means nothing.
It means nothing. If you're not, if you haven't, you're not going to be able to really do it unless you're really conscious about how you're relating to different people in this pure sattvic way.
If you're steeped in lust, how peaceful can your mind be for meditation?
Yeah.
If you're steeped in envy for another person,
So now listen to this. So what's being said is that our attitudes towards other people are clouding our minds. We have to consciously cultivate other attitudes. And when we do, what's the benefit? And I'll read this now. I'll complete this. He says the inclination towards controlling the vrittis, in other words, towards cultivating a focused state of mind by the practice of yoga, spontaneously arises because the inclination for enlightenment is natural to the pure sattvic mind. Right? You begin to... spiritual life just becomes natural for you. It's just that we've blended in all this crazy envy and so on. Now, the next commentator is Hariharananda.
Harihar?
Yes.
Imagine if that was your name in school in America, they would torture you.
Hariharananda.
Hey, Harihar.
It's Hariharananda.
What's up, Harihar?
So,
Kids were so cruel, weren't they?
okay, Rabbi.
Guess what they would call me?
I don't know, Rabbi. Well,
Gay crapo. Gay crapo.
Okay.
Gay
All right,
crapo.
Rabbi. So Hariharananda suggests...
Still bugs me.
Let it go, Rabbi. Let it go.
I know. This is what drove me to spiritual life. Getting picked on, tortured, made fun of on the bus, all that stuff.
Hariharananda suggests that envy generally arises when we encounter people whom we do not care about experiencing happiness. Even a pious person can invoke our jealousy, and we take cruel delight when we find an enemy in misery. One should rather try to practice projecting the happiness we feel when our friend is happy or virtuous onto an enemy who is happy. I'll read that again. One should rather try to practice. So it's saying you got to practice this. You got to train your mind to start to think this way, right? Yeah. One should rather try to practice projecting the happiness we feel when our friend is happy or virtuous onto an enemy who is happy, right? The way that I feel when my friend is doing well, I should feel that same way when I see the person who's my quote-unquote enemy doing well. Let me cultivate that. Let me try to think that
Prabhu,
way.
This is so powerful. You know how we have these yoga classes where we're going to dissect chaturanga. We're going to dissect plank. And here's the anatomy of plank. What you're doing right now, or the Bhagavatam is doing, it's dissecting the way the mind feels towards someone that's hurt me, towards someone that's hurt others, towards someone that's kind to me, towards someone who has more than me. We're dissecting the mind. We're noticing how we normally, what our default is normally. And and just because we're actually shedding some light on that, now we're going to notice it. We're going to go home for the holidays and there's my brother who makes me feel like this. There's my sister. How am I reacting to it? This is like an anatomy class, Kastuba.
It is. Now he continues. Hariharananda continues.
Hariharananda.
He says the compassion we feel for our friends when they're unhappy should be cultivated for our enemies. By these practices of equanimity, the mind can become lucid and fixed in the goal of yoga. Okay. So in other words, unless you're really attentive to how your mind is responding to different grades of people that you bump into in life, you're really not going to be able to focus your mind in yoga. Now, Vijnana Bhikshu and Shankar both have something to share.
These are other acharyas commenting, right?
Yeah, yes. So Vijnana Bhikshu...
You know what Kaustuba's doing? I don't know if people... I just want to clarify. Kaustuba's reading from this classical text, the Yoga Sutras, and then different commentators who've come down in a disciplic chain have also give some insight into the text. And so that's how we learn these texts. We don't just read them. We read them through the commentators, and that's because Stu is going through different historical commentators and shedding more light.
it's a little hard to express, but the depth of the character of these people and the learning of these kind of people is really of a different grade than just whoever writes their latest edition of the Yoga Sutras.
Here's what I think.
You
I
know,
read the Yoga Sutras, and here's me and Mara's take on it.
let me speculate on it and kind of justify my own lifestyle.
Seth Lieberman chimes in. Here's what I think. Wait a second. Let me tell you.
So here's Vijnana Bhikshu and Shankara quote the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita in this regard. They're quoting from Bhagavad Gita 2:64 and 65. A self-controlled person attains peace by engaging with sense objects with the senses freed from attachment and aversion and under his control. With clear mind, his intelligence becomes fixed. Okay. And then they go on and say this. As arithmetic is important. Oh, this is Bhojaraj speaking now. And this is something that relates to what you and I say a lot on the show. We're having a peaceful mind. Like all of the qualities that we. Well, I'll just read it and then we'll comment on it. He says, as arithmetic is important, says Bhojaraj, not so much in its own right, as in order to arrive at the total sum of something. Okay, so arithmetic. We don't just learn arithmetic so that we can show how we can crunch numbers. Sure. The point is you come to a sum, and then that helps you with what you have to do next, right? So he says, as arithmetic is important, says Bhojaraj, not so much in its own right as in order to arrive at the total sum of something. So the attitudes mentioned in the sutra are important in order to prepare the mind for meditation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I like how they're always referring to other sacred literature, like the Bhagavad Gita and things like that. It's like,
that's right.
It's just not like they're randomly coming in, reading a book and talking about it. They're part of an entire culture. They've studied vastly, and then they're giving some. And after a certain point, most probably, their gurus have asked them, or they've got blessings from their gurus to comment on it. It's not just a bold statement like, now I'm going to make my way into the sadhu community by putting out this new commentary. Make a splash. First, I need a marketing team. Hariharananda needed a whole marketing team to get out there, and I'm putting out a new edition of the Yoga Sutras, and I think it's going to take off. We got a whole I'm trying to take over like southern India and get my word out there, and maybe do a little book tour.
It's so true. It's like in the real yoga culture, you could not establish yourself as a respected teacher without referring to the sacred texts. Because, in other words, your clout was based on how well you're representing it. So even if you came forward and you're putting forth some kind of interesting philosophy and you're spinning a whole, a whole interesting take on life, people would say, well, how is that, how, but what you're saying, how is that represented in these sacred texts? Because you could be in total illusion. Why should, these texts, they go back forever. They've held up. They're solid, for ages, people have practiced them and achieved the goals of them. We trust in their validity. We don't necessarily trust in your validity. We trust you when you can show us that you're representing them. So that is the yoga culture, but people are so out of touch with it now that people look at the beard and they look at the turban and they look at the person's, smile or whatever.
Be a guru.
And they say, oh, this is guru. It's a guru,
Guru wears a turban.
It's a guru.
It's a guru. You should wear a turban.
I wear a turban sometimes. It's,
The turban's like a big part of Vaishnav culture. We sometimes drop the ball on turbans. Let's bring back the turban.
Bring back the turban.
No, it keeps your hair.
It's practical.
Cool. It's practical. Yeah. It's just one piece of cloth. You wrap it.
Yeah.
You could put a jewel on it if you wanted to.
Okay, so we haven't read one verse from Bhagavatam yet, and we got 5 minutes left, Virgo.
We haven't read one verse?
No.
What are we talking about?
We've been Yoga Sutras, and then before that, I think
Text
we're talking
14.
about Christmas in your
By
home.
attaining the highest platform of devotional service, as I have explained, one can overcome the influence of the three gunas, the three modes of material nature, and be situated in the transcendental stage as is the Lord.
Okay.
That's a pretty great promise.
It is, and but it's saying here again, if we look at this verse, it's specific. It's being specific. Bhakti yogakya atyantika, that by bhakti yoga, but not just any bhakti yoga, but that pure bhakti yoga that was being talked about before, right? Not the mixed bhakti yoga, not I'm worshiping Krishna, but I have a desire for something else, right? I have a desire for something of this world, or even that I'm worshiping Krishna, but I want freedom from the suffering of this world. But that, what here it calls atyantika, which means the highest platform, bhakti yoga on the highest platform. Then what does it do for one? It can, through it, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature. The trigunam is mentioned here, that you overcome this powerful external influences that are really, quite frankly, compromising our freedom in life, right? They're hacking their way through our senses. These different influences are coming in and really controlling us. Controlling our behavior, controlling how we move through the world.
Yeah,
and then it
owning
says, they're owning us.
Instead of having like God be the puppeteer, it's sort of like lust is your puppeteer, greed is your puppeteer.
Yeah, lust is my
That's a good
puppeteer.
analogy. I like lust the puppeteer.
Yeah, well, there is that painting, that is in a lot of the Bhagavad Gita's as it is, right?
That's a weird one, isn't it?
Weird. I was gonna say it's a great one,
I mean, it's weird and cool.
It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's oh God, I hate when words like that slip my mind. But
beautiful.
No, like in other words, it's compelling. It's compelling.
It's compelling.
Yeah.
It's got like workers, like
one's
digging
a worker.
A ditch.
One's a worker digging a ditch, and one's kind of like the overseer, kind of like getting on their case right above them.
Yeah, but they're both controlled by these puppeteers. It's like these women in saris or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're like goddesses up in the heavens, and they have like the marionette strings on both of them, and they're three different women wearing three different saris, representing the three different modes of material nature.
It's such an interesting thing, huh? I don't want to be controlled by other people. I don't want to be controlled by lower passions. We've all been there, done that. I don't want to be controlled by greed and lust and anger, sometimes controlled by rage, but I do want to be controlled by Krishna. And when we're giving class, we're hope if we can just get our ego out of the way, then Krishna will speak through us. And sometimes you have this experience where you're trying to talk to somebody about a spiritual topic, and you don't even realize, and a lot of you maybe can relate to it. You can write it on the board if you do, that sometimes you don't even know where this is coming from. Like I sometimes, when I'm speaking to somebody on a spiritual matter, and I don't know what the next word out of my mouth is going to be. It's just, you get this point, like Krishna's just speaking through you. And that's where we're trying to get, where we can be that vessel. So Krishna uses us instead of getting the lust, greed, anger puppeteers moving us. I've also been moved by those. I've also spoke out of anger, spoken out of lust, spoken out of greed. Those are real puppeteers too. And Prabhupada makes that beautiful, the poem on the Jaladuta. He's coming here and he's like, why have you brought me, Krishna, to this world? It's one of those beautiful things ever. And he says, use me like a puppet. And if you want me to dance, make,
Yeah,
say it right, Kasub. I'm saying it wrong.
I'll be your puppet. Yeah, if you want me to dance, make me dance, make me dance. Yeah.
Make me dance. He says,
but what it's saying in this verse is that through pure bhakti, one does overcome the influence of these three modes of material nature. You no longer have those strings attached to you. And then what Krishna says is mad bhava yo padyate. He says mad bhavaya, that you attain my transcendental stage or my transcendental nature. In other words, you attain the pure spiritual nature of God, right, where you are no longer controlled by that lower energy, right? Pure. And of course that's reflecting the Bhagavad Gita. What is it? Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya duratya.
And it's,
yes. yes. Prabhajante.
I'm having some Bhagavad Gita, that's true.
We were relishing the Gita, but that verse says that the three modes of material nature, Krishna says that that's my energies. Those are my energies, and they're very difficult to overcome. But when one surrenders unto me, they can easily cross beyond it.
You know what's nuts is like if we are successful in kama or krodha or right, if we are successful, then we get arrogant about I'm so successful. Yeah, I'm so clever. Yeah, I'm so intelligent. This is how I made this type of money. This is how I got over on this person. And it's interesting. We're just like, it's actually not even us anyway. It's some karma of the gunas, right? Mixed with the puppeteers. We're like some arrogant puppet.
You know, it's interesting because in that painting, it shows one guy, he's like digging the ditch, right?
Right.
And then it shows like kind of the overseer. I think he's got like a cane in his hand and he's kind of like oppressing that guy that's digging the ditch. So like the guy that's digging the ditch may think, I'm being controlled by this guy, right? But we see that even he's being controlled, right? It's, you know, it's that Rajaguna, the Tamaguna's got him like, you know, pulling him and pulling his strings and making him move. You know, I'm going to speak this weekend at the Bhakti Center. I think it's 11 a.m. As part of what they call the Soul Talks there. And the topic that I'm going to speak on is, are we free? You know, are we truly free?
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say, and I'm serious, that's a Christian miracle. I was just about to say, we are rescripting what freedom means.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. We are rescripting what freedom means, and it's completely a personal choice.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
It's
How
got
are
nothing
our
to
choices?
do with boundaries or borders or kingdoms, or it's a personal choice if I want freedom in this world.
Or how are my choice? I think my choices are based on my own free will, but how much are they really, or how much am I being controlled? How much am I a puppet to the external influences that govern the world that we live in? So if anyone wants to come to that, go to the Bhakti Center.
It's live.
It's live and it's free, I believe.
Ooh, lucky.
Yeah, maybe I'll record it for Patreon people.
Yeah, record it for Patreon.
Yeah. Okay,
All right,
I think we're out of time. We got one verse in. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you today, Kostu. Me and Kostu are going to meet up, hug, embrace each other, go to the strawberry fields, maybe.
Oh, we can do that if you like.
Have a little pillow fight at strawberry fields, maybe.
I don't know if we'll do that. But do we have any takeaways, Mara?
We do. Is my daily meditation my highest spiritual potential?
Yeah.
Mara needs a new mic. What do you
I know
think
this
about
is
that,
it's got your quality of sound.
Guess what you're
worse.
getting for Christmas, Mara?
Oh, sorry.
No,
No, I'm just saying. Guess what you're getting for Christmas? We're going to get you a mic.
let's
Great.
get her mic. Yeah, we got to do that.
Set a high bar to cultivate lucidity.
For cultivating what?
Lucidity.
I like that. Cultivate. Yes.
We're all struggling with the same problematic traits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Clean up your room before you clean up the world.
Boom. T-shirt.
Our attitude towards others are clouding our mind.
Our attitude towards others are clouding our mind. Yeah.
Don't let lust or greed be your puppeteer.
Ooh. That'd be a cool
Bring
shirt.
back-
Imagine walking down the street with that shirt on.
Bring back the turban.
Bring back the turban.
Bring back the turban. What about Jiffy Corn Muffin Mix? We didn't talk about that at all. I thought
We did.
someone was going to get that as a takeaway. How about just be grateful for what you get for Christmas? How about that? Instead of eating away at your heart for 10 years until you move into an
10
ashram
years.
and sleep on the floor.
It's been like 45 years it's still eating away
Okay, it's
at
been
your...
45 years. I never got. I was trying to chant the anger and frustration away. It never went. It's still there, Mom. You gotta admit, that was a pretty crazy story. Corn muffin mix. Oh, thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks to Seth Lieberman. Make sure you check out Seth this weekend, saying Seth Prabhu. This Sunday, our Patreon members. Mara, how do you do that? You got to become a Patreon member, and then you get sent a link for everything. How does that work?
It all gets posted.
Every week. Yes. It gets posted on Patreon, and every week we send out an email with all the events that are going on.
All
For
right.
Patreon members, the asana classes, the Bhakti recovery group meetings.
Great.
You
guys want to join us?
Sage page going again too. I've been a little bit
slacking. We have a mailing list, wisdomofthesages.com. You can sign up. We have, what else do we have? We have, if you want to join us live on Zoom, it's fun. People do it all the time. We've got some new people on today. Join us. Get the secret codes to get on Zoom from Mara. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. Then you too can look all these Zoomers in the eyes. Look them over. Try to figure them out. Figure out what they're doing with their life. Oh, they're all good. We have a nice little community here. Otherwise, you're out there in other world. We don't even know you're out there unless you write us in. And you know what? One nice way to write in is go to Apple Podcasts and write a review and tell us your story. You got to be a 5-star. We don't want you. But
but people, when you say that, tell us your story, you got to be careful because like people are going there and they're just writing like it has nothing to do with the way. It has nothing to do with the podcast. They're just writing like their story about like how they came to bhakti or something like that.
Well, that's a cool story. I think that's a very inspirational story.
Reviews. They're meant to be reviews of the podcasts.
We can do it for what you can write whatever you want on those things.